Good evening, this is Goldie, also known as Mr. Anecdotal, Mr. Pasty, and the Talking Head. It's Wednesday, May 11th, 2011. Sorry about the black eye. Someone at the Y disagreed with my method of defense. I was unable to transmit my rants from the secure location, and I apologize. Remember, most importantly, I rant so you don't have to. If I don't have your email and you'd like to receive the script of each show, send me your email to my new email address, which is goldyrant@gmail.com. A couple things. The earlier that you can figure out your bucket list, the better. So I returned from the secure location to $3.95 a gallon gas. Bin Laden is dead, Glenn Beck is off the air, and there's no AC in the YMCA. I leave, and the world falls apart. Also, remember, in business and with X's, if you delete or are silent, you win. If you talk, you lose. Here's a brief summary of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the net effect of the Bin Laden assassination and its messaging. I'm going to talk about the drug war. I'm going to talk about a very stupid Bluetooth class action lawsuit. Bin Laden is dead. The interesting thing about this is that, of course, Alex Jones is saying this is a hidden conspiracy. The Republicans are flabbergasted, the Democrats are jubilant, and the sheeple are happy. I like to not have to delve too much into the actual event, but much like when a young girl told me that I was an idiot since I didn't agree that 9/11 was a conspiracy, I don't need to use too much brain power on the conspiracy theory. I always said that the conspiracy portion of 9/11 was almost irrelevant and that the U.S. government was and is really too incompetent to pull off a conspiracy. The most interesting thing was that those in power did with 9/11. They increased defense spending. They passed the Patriot Act, and they opened Guantanamo Bay. If you look at the sophistication of the message coming out of the Obama White House, you will see that I was correct in saying that Obama is the smartest guy in the room. And if you remember, I've stated that the day after the election, I became very depressed after being really happy election night watching the Daily Show Colbert coverage, realizing that Obama was a part of the exact same system. More of the same. And so look at what we're doing. The increased defense spending in the form of intelligence gathering was instrumental in the assassination. And just listen to everyone thanking our great warriors in uniform and the need for advanced technology to keep these heroic warriors safe when they are carrying out an assassination. The Patriot Act is definitely being touted as the thing that caught him and will be extended. And since Guantanamo Bay was where a lot of intelligence gathering through the use of torture happened, it will not be closed or moved, nor will convicted or found innocent detainees be released. Let's look at Fox News for a moment, shall we? May 2nd, 2011, I actually turned it on when I was in the secure location. Karl Rove, after Bin Laden's death, President Obama's next challenge is to explain that the war on terror is still far from over. On FoxNews.com, 5/2/11 by KT McFarland. The curse is broken. Bin Laden is dead, and America is back. May 2nd, 2011. President Obama told the world Sunday night that Osama bin Laden is dead. The head of the Al-Qaeda terrorist group, is no longer alive. It may be too soon to call this a watershed event, but for the first time in a decade, we have a major, unequivocal win. There was an editorial in the New York Times, kind of went the opposite direction. The Torture Apologists, published May 4th, 2011. The killing of Osama bin Laden provoked a host of reactions from Americans. Celebration, triumph, relief, closure, and renewed grief. One reaction, however, was both cynical and disturbing, crowing by the apologists and practitioners of torture that bin Laden's death vindicated their immoral and illegal behavior after the September 11th attacks. Jose Rodriguez Jr. was the leader of counterterrorism for the CIA from 2002 to 2005 when Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and other Al-Qaeda leaders were captured. He told Time magazine that the recent events show that President Obama should not have banned so-called enhanced interrogation techniques. Mr. Rodriguez, you may remember, ordered the destruction of interrogation videos. John Yoo, the former Bush Justice Department lawyer who twisted the Constitution and the Geneva Conventions into an unrecognizable mess to excuse torture, wrote in the Wall Street Journal that the killing of bin Laden proved that waterboarding and other abuses were proper. Donald Rumsfeld, the former defense secretary, said at first that no coerced evidence played a role in tracking down bin Laden. But By Tuesday, he was reciting the talking points about the virtues of prisoner abuse. There is no final answer to whether any of the prisoners tortured in President George W. Bush's illegal camps, they should also say in Obama's camps, gave up information that eventually proved useful in finding bin Laden. A detailed account in the Times on Wednesday by Scott Shane and Charlie Savage concluded that torture played a small role at most in the years and years of painstaking intelligence and detective work that led a Navy SEALs team to bin Laden's hideout in Pakistan. That squares with the frequent testimony over the past decade from many other interrogators and officials. They have said repeatedly, and said again this week, that the best information came from prisoners who were not tortured. Israelis know this. The Times article said Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was waterboarded 183 times, fed false information to his captors during torture. Even if it were true that some tidbit was blurted out by a prisoner while being tormented by CIA interrogators, that does not remotely justify Mr. Bush's and Obama's decision to violate the law and any acceptable moral standard. This was not the ticking time bomb scenario that Bush-era officials and Obama-era officials often invoke to rationalize abusive interrogations, although Obama does it much more silently. If, as Representative Peter King, the Long Island Republican, said, information from abused prisoners directly led to the redoubt, why didn't the Bush administration follow that trail years ago? Or why didn't the Obama administration follow it now? There are many arguments against torture. It is immoral and illegal and counterproductive. The Bush administration's abuses and ends justify the means arguments did huge damage to this country's standing and gave its enemies succor and comfort. If that isn't enough, there's also the pragmatic argument that most experienced interrogators think that the same information, or better, can be obtained through legal and humane means. No matter what Mr. Yu and his friends may claim, the real lesson of the bin Laden operation is that it demonstrated what can be done with focused intelligence work and persistence. And good detective work. The battered intelligence community should now be basking in the glory of a successful operation. See, this is the New York Times writing about Obama. It should not be dragged back into the muck and murk by political figures whose sole agenda seems to be to rationalize actions that cost this country dearly in our inability to hold credible trials for very bad men and in the continued damage to our reputation. All right. I need to go over some things. When I was walking to La Vela Latina in the secure location, two buddies were walking out, local Costa Ricans, and told me that bin Laden was dead. I was deadpan. It was almost crickets. Then I went into the bar and saw on TV a bunch of people dancing in Times Square. Didn't expect it. I was confronted by a guy from the States that said I was one who wanted to put bin Laden in college, not in jail. I remained silent. I was confronted by another person from Colombia that listens to these rants, and she said she wanted to know what I thought. And I said I did not know, as I'm trying not to comment during a major event like this. I did like the fact that everyone was talking about it and everyone had an opinion, but I did not yet have one. Well, I now have an opinion. The amount of emotions that went through people's minds kind of reminded me of the Obama election, when the day after people were crying at the celebration parties, people were on the floor crying. We quit our jobs. I think South Park did it really well on that episode. However, this particular assassination, because that's what it is, was the worst possible thing that could have happened. Every bad thing possible that is going on today with regards to civil liberties, abuses, torture, TSA, surveillance, data collection will continue. Definitely, torture has continued and had been continuing and will continue. And the American people are okay with that. The killing of babies is okay. And the American people are okay with that. Now, those are two particular things that I feel that I'm allowed to be enraged at the American people about. I'm not allowed to be enraged at the American people when they don't understand the BP oil spill is a structural regulatory defect because the regulated write the regulations. I don't have a right to be enraged at that. And in fact, this rant was a response to me being enraged all the time at idiots, at people that didn't think about this stuff. But I've recognized that people are trying to put food on the table. And when they're trying to put food on the table, they're just not going to understand that there's a need for a constitutional amendment. Making sure that the regulated don't write the regulations. However, as I said a few weeks ago, when we started bombing Libyan babies and killing Libyan babies, and I ran into Democrats that were okay with it because it was Obama doing the killing, I became enraged. And I'm allowed to be enraged. This one is a little more difficult. Torture, I've always thought, is something that I can be enraged at the American people about. As long as they get to put more McDonald's on their table for their diabetic fat kids, that's all they care about. But I think torture rises to the level of something that allows me to be enraged. We know that killing babies overseas is something that the people of the United States are okay with, as long as it's their guy doing it. And this is really, really painful for me. Really painful. In fact, I didn't do rants for the last 2 weeks because I couldn't open the news. I couldn't pick up the New York Times. I couldn't look at the Wall Street Journal. I couldn't even look at Fox News. And I love those guys. The messaging, of course, is completely election-based. Now, I didn't watch the Correspondents' Dinner and watch the timing of that whole thing and how that worked and how they were joking about Osama bin Laden at the Correspondents' Dinner with the full knowledge that there was an operation going on. The message is that Obama's great, strong. He's now eliminated all primary challengers. He's eliminated a major argument that he is strong. Because he's been pulling troops out of Iraq and wanting to pull troops out of Afghanistan and supposedly closing bases in Pakistan, which I'll talk about a little later. The message that there's going to be retaliation is the same freaking argument that we heard following 9/11. Why do they hate our freedoms? I probably have said that 150 times on these rants because it's a bullshit phrase. Why do they hate our freedoms? Why did they strike us? Why would they kill all these innocent civilians? A phrase like that only works with people that are uneducated. And I can be enraged when it comes to killing. I know abortion's a tough issue, so let's put that to the side. This is intentional killings of humans that are out of the womb. I mean, remember what happened following 9/11. We were made to be fearful. And it turned out during that time, we were made to be fearful for no reason at all. Except, of course, to enrich defense spending, intelligence gathering, paying money to our friends in Pakistan and Afghanistan, opening up Guantanamo Bay, extraordinary rendition, torture, all of these policies that it didn't matter who the president was. This is what they wanted to do. Remember that history? We were made to feel scared all the time. Red alert, orange alert. Look in my underwear. Search me down. We need these big T-1000 machines. We need them on our streets looking at all the cars. We need to listen to every conversation. We need cameras on every red light. These are not even cameras that catch people running red lights. And they're not even purportedly for traffic. Because I can't pull them up to see if there's traffic on Cesar Chavez when I'm going to the Y. Do you remember? I remember. I had said during that time, I'm willing to put up with things happening here. I'm willing to put up with these types of acts. I'm willing to put up with bombings. I'm willing to put up with shootings. I'm willing to put up with stabbings so that we do not infringe on the critical civil liberties that we have in our Constitution. That's the sacrifice that you pay in a free society where there are not traffic stops, stopping every car, guilty until proven innocent. When Obama was elected, I was happy that night. Somebody this morning called me a Democrat. It's a little bothersome because I'm not a Democrat. I'm one dot below libertarian dead center. That's what I am. I did vote for him because I actually thought there would be changes to those specific things. I didn't think government would get smaller or bigger. I actually didn't think about any of that. I was worried about torture, renditions, waterboarding, data collection. But I should have known from Bill Clinton's time when this data collection started, when the internet started, when emails started, when mobiles were being tapped. My mobile's probably listening right now, even though it's off. And I said then, I'll say it now. We would have been better off if McCain had been elected. At least in that case, the anti-war, anti-torture, anti-infringement of civil liberties crowd would have stayed on course. Stay the course. Instead, their man was elected, and now look where we are. We are so much worse off now than we were. We are so much worse off now because that whole group has dissipated. The Tea Partiers, they're probably all for this. They're like, finally, we killed the guy. War's over. You don't hear anybody saying the war's over. Because the war will never be over. I was talking to my Tea Party friend the other day, and actually, to be honest with you, I did not want to have a Glenn Beck moment, because this is a really bad time for our country that this occurred on Obama's watch. Or at least they released that it occurred on Obama's watch. This is terrible. This is a terrible thing. It would have been better off if had he remained uncaught. I cannot even believe how bad it's going to get now. Because now you've got Democrats saying he did a great thing. And they're going to support whatever it takes to get him reelected. And we were going down a pretty good road here. Maybe we could have swayed the Tea Partiers to really care about the First and Fourth Amendments. Maybe. They were active. Because the Democrats certainly weren't. Where's the anti-war crowd? Where's the anti-assassination crowd? I mean, this was an assassination of an untried person. I know they tried him for the First World Trade Center bombings. But did they hand down a sentence of execution to be carried out by our army? By Navy SEALs? I mean, go into the conspiracy for a second. Obviously, he listened to me. If you're silent, you win. If they brought that body back, my God, body's gone. They got rid of the body? Obama got rid of the body. Where are you, Democrats? Where are you? This is 1984. 1984 has come true. We were all worried during the Bush years. You should be much more worried during the Obama years about 1984 and Big Brother. And there's always an enemy. And turn in your neighbor. This is Confessions of an Economic Hitman. There's somebody out there that got in the way and we took care of him. And where's the American public? This is okay to just kill someone? When did that become what we are? It's definitely water. When did that type of killing become what we currently are? We've always been that way. If somebody got in our way, we assassinated them. Always. That's how we installed the Shah of Iran. We did that in South America. Ad nauseum, I've been over that. Central America. It's painful. It's really painful. And I'm allowed to be enraged. And so should you. All right. Interestingly, there was an article that came up before the report of the Bin Laden assassination. And I sometimes like looking at things even though they have been supplanted by future events. Similar to reading Greenspan's The Age of Turbulence, way after the fall of Lehman Brothers. It made it very interesting reading. So let's look at this and take a look at some of the disinformation and messaging. From CNN.com on April 23, 2011, source, U.S. departs Pakistan drone base. Islamabad, Pakistan, CNN. A senior Pakistani intelligence official told CNN Friday that U.S. military personnel have left a southern base said to be a key hub for American drone operations in the country's northwestern tribal areas. It is the Shamsi Air Base in Pakistan's Balochistan province, from which drones are said to take off, and where they are refueled for operations against Islamic militants. The development comes amid a public furor over American drone attacks, which have killed civilians. A suspected U.S. drone strike Friday in the Pakistani tribal region killed 25 people, including 8 civilians and 17 militants, a Pakistani intelligence source said. This came after another strike on March 17th killed 44 people, most of them civilians. Remember the Office of Disinformation that Dick Cheney started over at the Defense Department? Then rapidly stated that it was to be eliminated? Well, this story occurred during the planning of the Bin Laden assassination. Back to the story. Yet a U.S. official disputed the Pakistani contention that civilians died in Friday's drone strike. There was no evidence to support that claim whatsoever, the U.S. official said. So after the assassination, we have a nice big BS dispute with Pakistan over the Bin Laden assassination and the fact that Pakistani officials knew that he was staying there, almost right under the noses of a military encampment. It's a military town. I cannot predict what will happen, but unless Pakistan fails, we will continue drone attacks. We will continue to use that base in Pakistan for those attacks. More civilians will die. The government will continue using their own secret police. And Al-Qaeda will continue. And who will benefit? The defense industry will benefit. The intelligence industry will benefit. The data collection industry will benefit. So even following the success, they're playing up this big dispute that Pakistan won't let us talk to his widows. To find out what they know about his sex habits. Who knows? Painful. All right. Following the success of this rant, which has helped sway my friend's 11-year-old son about what is really going on in the world regarding Libya, I'm sitting in my cell in the secure location late, and I see this article dated April 20th, 2011 that irritates me. It's about Libya. A PKT machine gun, a weapon designed to be mounted on a Soviet tank and fired electronically by a crew member inside, has no manual trigger, no sights, and no shoulder stock. That does not prevent many Libyan rebels from carrying it as if it were an infantryman's gun, even though it cannot be fired. The MAT-49, a submachine gun produced for the French military several decades ago, is a weapon for which it is difficult to obtain parts. That did not seem to trouble one rebel who showed up on the eastern Libyan front brandishing an MAT-49 with no magazine. He would have been more dangerous with a sling and stone. I don't need to read anymore. It is clear that the intent of this article is to get Americans to believe that the Libyan rebels, whatever the F that means, are ill-equipped and we need to arm them. I heard on Fox News today that rebels had captured a Libyan town. Yay! I think we are now in big trouble. And especially following this assassination. Because everything we do is good. Everything we do is right. We know what we're doing. Obama can now say, we know what we're doing. The Democrats, of course, believe him. The Republicans say he's completely incompetent, no matter what. That's why I say that assassination was the worst thing that could have happened. It's the worst. Worst. All right. Let's move on to something more mundane like the drug war and the structural regulatory defect that keeps it going. And now the assassination of Bin Laden that keeps it going. April 20th, 2011. More will die. Mexico drug war claims U.S. lives. Concerns grow as more Americans get caught in brutal gang violence. By Sival Omer, MSNBC.com. While U.S. officials have long been concerned about the mindless violence bred by Mexico's bloody and brutal drug wars, they have a new reason to worry. Americans are increasingly getting caught in the deadly crossfire. Some who have died were themselves working for the drug cartels, but more and more often, experts say, the casualties are U.S. law enforcement officers and innocent victims who died simply because they ended up at the wrong place at the wrong time. These cartels will stop at nothing, said Tiffany Hartley, who became an anti-cartel crusader after her husband David apparently was gunned down on September 30th by Mexican drug gang members on Falcon Lake, a dammed section of the Rio Grande straddling the Texas-Mexico border. The violence is not going to stop, and more will die at the unforgiving hands of the cartels. No one can say for certain how many Americans have been killed in the escalating Mexican drug violence in the past several years, but the closest thing to an official list, the U.S. State Department's database of deaths of U.S. citizens abroad by non-natural causes, indicates that the number has been steadily increasing. At least 106 U.S. residents were victims of executions or homicides directly related to drug battles in Mexico in 2010, compared to 79 in 2009 and 35 in 2007. So, it's 106 in 2010, 79 in 09, 35 in 07, according to the State Department figures. Many deaths, disappearances, aren't tallied, and experts and the State Department itself say the number is certainly much higher. For example, the State Department doesn't list several recent high-profile deaths that have been publicly linked to the drug cartels, or cases in which Americans have vanished or been killed in the U.S. by Mexican drug gangs. You have a lot of folks who are dual citizens, with some born in the U.S. but who live on the Mexico side. Scott Stewart, a vice president with the global intelligence firm Stratfor, said of the difficulty in documenting American deaths connected to a cartel violence. A lot of them are working back and forth, and some are working as gunmen too. And when someone like that dies, it's hard to know. Some simply disappear, while others are lying in a vat of lye or dumped in a mass grave. Who is Stratfor, a global intelligence firm? Do they get money? Of course they get money. Stratfor also says the presence of cartels has been documented in more than 230 U.S. cities. If we didn't have this drug war, they wouldn't get the money to do this study. Recent high-profile cases. Among the recent high-profile killings of Americans believed to be linked to drugs trafficking, U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agents Jaime Zapata, 32, died February 15th. We talked about this when hitmen from the Zetas cartel attacked the agent's blue Chevy Suburban as he and his partner, Victor Avila, drove through Mexico's San Luis Potosí state. Zapata was on assignment to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement attaché in Mexico City from his post in Laredo, Texas. Avila was shot twice in the leg. Now, at least they don't give us all that crap disinformation about whether this was an ambush or not, or whether they identify themselves or whatever. Next one, American missionary Nancy Davis. Davis and her husband Sam were driving their 2008 Chevrolet pickup on a highway near San Fernando, about 70 miles south of the Mexican border city of Reynosa, when killers opened fire on January 26th, hitting the 59-year-old woman in the head. Mexican and U.S. authorities said the gunmen were likely cartel thugs bent on stealing the couple's truck. These are high-profile cases that they say were done. Now they said were likely cartel thugs. How about just criminals wanting to steal a truck? Martin Alejandro Cotto Monroe, 38, was found dead in Chandler, Arizona apartment on October 10th, his severed head several feet away from his trunk. Police later determined that he was killed in retaliation for stealing 400 pounds of marijuana from the Piestas El Chapo drug trafficking organization. Third-generation cattle rancher Robert Krentz, 58, and his dog, an 8-year-old heeler named Blue, were gunned down moments after Krentz reported seeing someone in trouble on his ranch, northeast of Douglas, Arizona, on March 27, 2010. Subsequent investigations suggested the killing was not random and that drug smugglers may have been responsible. While the circumstances surrounding individual cases can be difficult to ascertain, authorities in the U.S. say one thing is very clear. The cartels are pushing new boundaries when it comes to targeting Americans. Authorities in the U.S. say one thing is very clear. The cartels are pushing new boundaries when it comes to targeting Americans. Recent law enforcement bulletins have stated, this is a fax, have stated that cartels have instructed members to shoot and kill American border agents using AK-47 assault rifles, according to testimony presented March 31st at a hearing before the House Subcommittee on Homeland Security. The shooting of Special Agent Zapata and Avila is a game changer which alters the landscape of the involvement of the United States in Mexico's war against the drug cartels, said U.S. Representative Michael McCall, Republican, Texas, chairman of the subcommittee. We talked about him ad nauseum a few weeks ago. For the first time in 25 years, the cartels are now targeting American law enforcement. Gonzalez, the Texas sheriff, whose department sits on the other side of the Rio Grande from Mexico, said his officers have long seen evidence that the violence doesn't respect borders. The cartels are regrouping, gearing up, Mendoza said. Our weapons are like squirt guns against their big guns, and they want to own our turf. Yeah, they want to turn this into Mexico, I guess. Gonzalez and many other local lawmen whose territory borders Mexico said the federal government needs to do more to help bolster police forces along the border. We need more staffing. We need better weapons, Gonzalez said. We need money. I want a better car. I want better guns. I want more people. But Tiffany Hartley, who lost her husband to the Mexican drug wars as they jet skied that September day on the Falcon Lake, said the government has waited far too long to get serious about the growing threat posed by the cartels. When American people hear cartels, they think of Mexico, she said. What they don't know is that they're already in our town, cities and states. They're in gangs, the jails, and in our prisons. They're already among us. Oh my God! This sounds exactly like the invasion of the body snatchers, or the communist menace, or the terrorist menace. They are already among us. What the F? I thought I'd been through this before. Now, following the assassination, everything the government does is right. Think about that border sheriff for a second. Those guys were the ones that were involved in those drug task forces. If you ever watch Breaking Bad, that does a good example of those state, federal drug task forces. They got more money if they captured money. They got more cars if they captured cars. This sheriff, of course, falls into that trap. He operates by incentives and disincentives. He gets more money if he can say, I need more guns. Gets more power, can hire more people, more voters, looks more powerful, looks more secure. Everybody operates by incentives and disincentives. Everyone, every organization, every person. I have long said that drug war is being pushed by everyone except the American people. They're being convinced by the drug companies that we cannot have weed in this country be legal. And this is the price we pay. We have been convinced by the defense industry that we cannot have weed in this country, so that we spend more on drones on our border, on the Texas border. Who's shooting at our planes? No one. That's the reason for a drone. Use a drone over Afghanistan because if they shoot it down, nobody dies. That makes some sense. But I don't like them. But it does make more sense in Afghanistan than here, the Texas border. One crashes into a house. You know how much they cost? Millions. You know what makes money? Boeing. It's a totally a part of the structural regulatory defect that allows those defense industries and drug companies to give as much money as they want to our legislators. See, this one is an easier fix than what's happening following the Bin Laden assassination. Because this is part of the structural regulatory defect and can be cured by a constitutional amendment. I'm not enraged at the American public over this one. I'm a little miffed at the number of people that are addicted to Oxy. Because it's a $15 copay, and every doctor will give it to you. All right. Let's move on to something completely different so I can get sane again and watch the rest of the game. I was sitting in the secure location thumbing through a travel magazine when I saw an ad for class action participants for people who purchased a Bluetooth headset. The lawsuit claims that Bluetooth headsets manufactured by defendants create a risk of hearing loss. A risk of hearing loss. So this isn't a thank you for smoking one. This is sticking something in your ear that has a volume in it creates a risk of hearing loss. And that, back to it, and that defendants acted wrongfully when they did not warn consumers of the alleged risk. Plaintiffs claim that consumers were misled into buying Bluetooth headsets and paying more than they would have if they knew about the alleged risk. Defendants deny their headsets are unsafe or that they did anything wrong, but have agreed to settle the case to avoid the cost of a trial. This is what I would call the exact opposite of a society, Costa Rica, that allows drunks into the bull ring. The exact opposite of a country where there is no one to sue. The exact opposite of a sane society. It's a nanny society. It's a scam. How do I get mine? We pay to educate all these idiots in the U.S. We pay for the health care of all these idiots. And then we let these idiots sue the manufacturer of a headset because the manufacturer did not warn consumers that putting an item inside their ear could potentially be damaging to that ear at high volumes. Remember the Seinfeld episode? It was on tonight, actually. The Seinfeld episode when Kramer spilled hot coffee on himself. Well, that was a reference to the famous McDonald's lawsuit where a woman spilled hot coffee on herself and sued them. She won money. You know what their coffee cups now say? Caution, hot coffee. Personal responsibility. When I took insurance in the law in college, my eyes were open to the concepts of risk and risk shifting. There's a concept we learn in the law that analyzes risk shifting called the least cost accident avoider. It's just a concept. It's not how we operate, but it's taken into account. Under this theory, the person that could pay the least amount of money to avoid the accident would be the person liable for the accident. So for example, if an idiot uses his lawnmower as a hedge trimmer and there was a warning on the lawnmower not to do that, the individual who used the lawnmower as a hedge trimmer would be the person liable, as they were the last person who could cheaply avoid the accident. It's obvious we don't have that system because that person sued and won. It was a Kmart case. Slightly differently, the mowing industry changed when a lot of rock spitting accidents happened and manufacturers installed those shields on the mowers to avoid the accident. You know, it's a little shield that comes down over the hole so that the rocks get shot down. They were the easiest ones to do that. They could do it the most cheaply. Slightly differently, then there's the legal theory of manufacturer's liability, which developed in the United States over time, where the manufacturer was always liable for any injury, no matter how foreseeable, which is exactly the opposite of caveat emptor or buyer beware. That's what caveat emptor means. Buyer beware. You bought something, you hoped it worked. If it killed you, you couldn't sue anyone. We are certainly not in a caveat emptor society. Costa Rica is. That's the effective system in Costa Rica, where there are no taxes, no services, and no effective lawsuits. So guess what? You don't walk in the middle of the road or lean on railings in two-story buildings. You do if you're a stupid drunk, get in the bull ring with the bulls. But you have no one to sue. You could not sign a big enough waiver in this country to be able to go into a bull ring. Now, I'm not saying I want people to go into bull rings. But I like that they have the right to do it, and it's very clear that they're not going to sue anybody when they get gored, and they do get gored. And then their buddies carry them off with their head bouncing, even with a back or spinal injury. In this lawsuit, this Bluetooth lawsuit, you have none of the above, only stupidity. What idiot does not know that any type of headphone or earbud is going to cause damage to your ears if you play it too loud, whether a phone or music? What idiot did not know that the McDonald's coffee was hot? What idiot did not know that you're not supposed to take a handle off a lawnmower and use the mower as a hedge trimmer? There's something wrong here, and it's personal responsibility. It's not liberal, conservative, it's just stupid. Personal responsibility. It's like driving drunk. If you get caught, you deserve to pay the 20 grand. If you don't, you were lucky, you didn't kill someone. Personal responsibility. All right. Interestingly, during the week of May 6, 2011, there was a story in the Austin American-Statesman that detailed how TxDOT, the Department of Transportation in Texas, was the only agency that was getting an increase in funding from the strapped Texas budget. We were down like $26 billion for 2 years. This is for roads, including tollways, to be operated by private companies. I won't go into that. You may remember my call for a halt to all road building except finishing under construction projects. Why are we doing the exact opposite of what we should be doing with regard to roads and car transportation? When I came back from Costa Rica, I was a little shocked to see regular gas at $3.95 a gallon. I really was. Shouldn't we be decreasing reliance on roads as the majority of the population cannot afford driving cars? I'm not getting enraged at people who are trying to put food on the table. I am appealing to you, the intelligentsia, to look at every expenditure of funds or granting of a right to the commons to see the structural regulatory defect at work. Why, at a time of rising gas prices, would we be increasing spendings for roads? By the way, a report on May 9th on Fox stated that following this $1 a gallon rise, there would be a 50-cent pullback by summer. I actually don't mind the increase in gas prices. There is some type of market at work, but I am bothered by increased spending in the face of a purely economic analysis, mainly that people will drive less as gas prices rise. So all these donors, all these construction companies, all these operators of tollways are giving money to Perry and the boys up there at the legislature so that TxDOT can continue building roads and selling off the use of them to private companies, donors. Structural regulatory defect at work. I talked April 20th, 2011 about the fake constitutional conservatives that call themselves the Tea Party and how all they are doing is continuing the Republican agenda. Well, on April 26, 2011, I was watching a tiny amount of Hannity on Fox, and he had a panel on there arguing against Obama's communist advisor, Van Jones, who had said that we needed a legal system that protected the rights of nature. It's kind of a speech. It was a speech that he was giving, just talking about that our legal system needs to protect the rights of nature. Of course, Hannity had on a few idiots, and the Democratic idiot was asked, should trees have rights and be entitled to a lawyer? My friend's 11-year-old son was watching, and I almost lost it. Not a single person on that show did a correct analysis. Since a tree is a part of the commons, it is the duty of the government to protect it. End of analysis. That's what government does. Protect the commons. They don't sell off the commons. There shouldn't be groups or parties that are more into selling off more of the commons and destroying more of the commons. The tree does not need a lawyer if these conservatives acted conservatively. And my friend's 11-year-old son understood this concept. Thank God. That's all there is today. I want to thank our sponsors, all of which support this form of conversation, but not necessarily the content. PianoByAngelo.com, Angelo Limbesis, who teaches and plays keyboards all over Austin. ZetaDesign.com for all of your decorative painting needs. She can make anything look like anything. AustinAreaPlumbing.com for all of your Austin plumbing problems. www.ticoadventurelodge.com, a small hotel in Santa Rosa, Costa Rica, where I have stayed. Beautiful, beautiful hotel. CNC Surf School in Samara, www.cncsurfsamara.webs.com. They got me up on a board, although I didn't surf this time. La Vela Latina, a great sunset bar and restaurant in Samara. Ambar Tequila at www.santospirits.com, an extremely smooth tequila. Another cool 4-unit green hotel in Samara called The Logan at www.thelogansamara.com/Logan. And of course, the Delicate Genius in Houston, who is a platinum sponsor. Thanks for coming out.